Hello, Iowa Realtors. Welcome to our 2024 legislative recap. I am Greta Haas, your Director of Government Affairs here at IR, here with our incredible lobbyist, Jen Kingland.
Good morning, or hello.
So we're just going to jump right in. It was a busy legislative session, but a productive legislative session. I think kind of the topic that is top of mind for many of our members deals with buyer agreements and kind of the fallout from the NAR lawsuit and proposed settlement. And so we kind of knew that this was coming down the pipeline and took some proactive steps and introduced legislation. Jen, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Sure, yes. So as Greta stated, this was kind of a scenario that we were thrown into, and we tried to maneuver and do the best we could to make sure that our laws, in effect, which they weren't in the past, that they complied with what happened with the lawsuit. So that was our primary concern with this. So the first legislation that was our top priority this year was the Real Estate Transparency Act. And for many of you, though, I think many of you know the outcome of the lawsuit, but what this did was it creates buyer's representation very similar to how we do seller's representation in the current market. Many of you have been using buyer's representation for years, so this is not new to you, but it is something where we needed to make adjustments in the law so that all real estate licensees were on an even playing field, so that everyone is compliant. And at the end of the day, I think what we need to remember with this is it's about our customers, it's about our clients and the public understanding all facets of real estate transactions. So as we drafted the legislation, very much so it mirrors what we do with sellers. It creates buyer's representation transparency, what our duties are for the buyers, and what they should expect through the real estate transaction. And that's kind of the primary thrust of the legislation.
Absolutely. So under this legislation, these buyer agreements will need to be signed prior to showing a property. However, we know there's instances in which you may have a buyer that wants to buy a property sight unseen. And so in that case, the fallback is these buyer agreements will need to be signed prior to making an offer. Additionally, we know that this is about consumer choice and transparency, and so a lot of you host open houses, and we did not want customers that walked into that open house to need to sign that buyer agreement right away. So this law also has a carve out that this will not apply to open houses.
Correct. Yeah, that was kind of an important piece as we went through this. It's not like on an initial meet and greet, you want to throw a document that's legally binding into your customers. So we thought that there were points of the legislation that we had to pivot as we moved along, and we heard your concerns doing that. But we look forward to administrative rules. That is a secondary kind of legal process that we have to go through. Legislatively, the Real Estate Commission has to adopt administrative rules as far as how to implement and enforce these changes, and Greta and Matt and everyone have been working very hard with the Iowa Real Estate Commission to get those rules implemented too.
Absolutely, yes.